Skins UK TV series.
Skins is a British teen drama that follows the lives of a group of teenagers in Bristol, southwest England, through the 2 years of sixth form. Its controversial storylines have explored issues such as dysfunctional families, mental illness, adolescent sexuality, substance abuse, death and bullying. The show was created by father and son television writers Bryan Elsley and Jamie Brittain for Company Pictures, and premiered on E4 on January 25, 2007. The show went on to be a critical success as well as a ratings winner within its target demographic. Over its initial 6-year run, Skins proved to be atypical of ongoing drama series in that it replaced its primary cast every 2 years. Plans for a film spin-off were first discussed in 2009, but ultimately did not come to fruition. Instead, a specially commissioned 7th and final series of the show was broadcast in 2013, featuring some of the cast from its 2007-10 run. The show's name comes from the rolling papers known as Skins. Other ventures to expand the brand have included a short-lived North American remake, which aired on MTV in 2011 but was cancelled after 1 season after advertisers abandoned the series in response to low ratings and the significant controversy which arose over its depiction of teen sexuality.
Cast and characters. First generation.
Tony Stoneham, Nicholas Hoult, is an attractive, intelligent and popular boy. His manipulative ways often go unnoticed by many, and are a catalyst for the majority of the events in the series. Sid Jenkins, Mike Bailey, is Tony's best friend, but has an entirely opposite personality. He lacks confidence, is socially uneasy and struggles with schoolwork. Tony's girlfriend is Michelle Richardson, April Pearson, a girl who can never stay angry at his mischievous behavior for long. Outwardly, Michelle appears shallow, vain and conceited, but she works hard, has a strong interest in French and Spanish, and is very emotionally mature. She is friends with Cassie Ainsworth, Hannah Murray, an eccentric girl who suffers from an eating disorder. Cassie attempts to hide her own struggles with mental health while her flamboyant parents ignore her in favor of their new baby. Chris Miles, Joe Dempsey, is the party animal of the group. He has a difficult home life. He lost his brother to a hereditary subarachnoid hemorrhage at a young age, and is living alone due to his ambivalent father and absent mother. He has a crush on his psychology teacher Angie, Siwan Morris. Jarl Fazer, Larissa Wilson, is a sensible girl with a talent for playing the clarinet. Her runaway mother has left Jarl to live with her famous musician father and aspiring rapper brothers. She is best friends with Michelle. Makeshksie Oliver, Mitch Hewer, is openly gay and has a passion for dance. He is portrayed as attractive, seductive and talented, and is well accepted by most of his friends and family. His best friend Anwar Carroll, Dev Patel, has a slightly off-the-wall personality, and is known for his silly antics and sense of humor. While he takes a pick-and-choose approach to Islam, and has no qualms about indulging in premarital sex and usage of alcohol and drugs in spite of his religion's policies against them, he has some difficulty fully accepting Makeshksie's sexuality. Only appearing in the second series, Lucy, better known as Sketch, Amy Ffion Edwards, is a quiet and scheming Welsh girl who is polite yet unnerving. Living 2 buildings over and having a clear view of his room, she develops an obsession for Makeshksie and becomes his stalker. Without her father, she is a young carer for her mother Sheila, who suffers from multiple sclerosis. As well as the regular cast, there are several important recurring characters. Effie Stoneham, Cal Scodelario, is Tony's younger sister, and shares many of her brother's qualities. She is mysterious and manipulative, and selectively mute during the first series. She regularly breaks the fourth wall. Abigail Stock, Georgina Moffat, is an upper-class schoolgirl with sociopathic tendencies, and one of Tony's many sexual conquests. Posh Kenneth, Daniel Kaluuya, goes to the same college as the main cast and often spends time with the boys. Madison Mad Twatter, Stephen Walters, features as Sid's emergency drug dealer, Doug. Giles Thomas, is a senior teacher at Roundview College, and British comedian and co-writer Josie Long appears as the college's careers counsellor. The central cast's parents are often played by well-known British actors credited in a guest starring role. Harry Enfield portrays Tony and Effie's father, Jim Stoneham, and Morwenna Banks plays his wife Anthea Stoneham. Peter Capaldi and Josie Lawrence act as Sid's parents, Mark and Liz Jenkins. Neil Morrissey and Naomi Alice Stone play Cassie's parents Marcus and Marguerite. Arabella Weir acts as Michelle's mother, Anna Richardson, and Danny Dyer as her stepfather Malcolm. Ronnie Fazer, Mark Monroe, is Giles' musician father, and Elaine, Josette Simon, her estranged mother. Marquette portrays Graham Miles, Chris' father, and Sarah Lancashire his stepmother Mary. Inda Manika plays Anwar's father Istiat Carroll, with Nina Wadia as Anwar's mother, Bibi Carroll. Heidi Monson acts as Dr. Victoria Stock, Abigail's mother. Makesh's parents, Walter and Jackie Oliver, are played by Bill Bailey and Fiona Allen.
Second generation.
Effie Stoneham, Cal Scodelario, Tony's younger sister, becomes the lead character for the second generation. Effie is pretty, popular and, like her brother, a natural leader. She is also quiet and distant, attempting to keep her own troubles hidden. Pandora Moon, Lisa Backwell, is her friend, having appeared for the first time in the second series episode. She is innocent to the sexual and narcotic world in which Effie indulges, but is ready and willing to explore it. Thomas Tumun, Merville Luke Ba, is an immigrant from Dr. Congo, with a morally upright outlook and good-hearted nature, and his storyline sees him becoming romantically involved with Pandora. James Cook, Jack O'Connell, Freddie Macleod, Luke Pasqualino, and J.J. Jones, Ollie Barbieri, have been best friends since childhood. Though Cook is charismatic and sociable, he is also boisterous and not afraid of authority. His womanizing drives many of the events in the series. By contrast, Freddie is an easygoing skater who likes to smoke weed, and as the more sensible and responsible friend, is often put out by Cook's behavior. Cook and Freddie are both drawn to Effie, which drives a rift in their friendship. JJ's autism makes it difficult for him to fit in socially, but he has learned to use magic tricks to make friends. His friends view him kindly but with a degree of amusement and sometimes irritation, but he knows Cook and Freddie will always take care of him. He is the kindest of the three, and by far the least worldly. Katie, Megan Prescott, and Emily Fitch, Catherine Prescott, are very different identical twin sisters. Katie thinks of herself as something of a wag and wants to usurp Effie's place as queen bee of the group. Katie's homophobic attitudes cause problems between them, as Emily comes to terms with her homosexuality. The quieter of the two, Emily is used to being in her sister's shadow, and is sulky but perceptive. She is in love with Naomi Campbell, Lily Loveless, a fiery, politically charged and passionate young woman with idealistic views and an abundance of ambition. Emily also develops a good friendship with JJ, becoming close confidants to one another. Other characters include Karen Macleod, Clarissa Clayton, Freddie's sister who is desperate to become famous. Mackenzie Crook guest stars as Johnny White, a psychotic Bristol gangster with comedians Jordan Long and Justin Edwards as his inept henchmen. Ardal O'Hanlon is the gang's careless Northern Irish college tutor, Kieran McFinelove, pronounced Macfew. As with the first generation, the central cast's parents are played by established British comedic actors. Harry Enfield and Morwenna Banks return as Effie's parents, with Banks' real-life partner David Baddiel appearing as her fictional husband's work colleague. Sally Phillips is introduced as Pandora's mother Angela, and Maureen Lipman as her aunt Elizabeth. Other parents include Cook's father, Matt King, and mother, Tanya Franks, JJ's mother, Juliette Cowan, and father, Douglas Hodge, Freddie's dad, Simon Day, and grandfather Norman, Dudley Sutton, Naomi's mother, Olivia Colman, and Katie and Emily's parents played by impressionist Ronnie Ancona and stand-up comedian John Bishop. Guest stars for the series include Georgia Henshaw, who appears as Lara, JJ's new girlfriend, and singer Will Young who plays a school counselor. Chris Addison appears as Roundview College's new Cameronian headmaster, David Blood. Pauline Quirk recurs as the detective who investigates Sophia's suicide.
Third generation.
Frankie Fitzgerald, Dakota Blue Richards, is seen as an outsider, having arrived to her first year at Roundview 3 weeks late upon moving to Bristol from Oxford. She is an intelligent and creative girl, but is seen by others as strange, largely due to her androgynous dress sense. Luke Rivet, Will Merrick, something of an optimist, loves his dog and his van foremost. He is best friends with Rich Hardbeck, Alex Arnold, a boy from a very middle-class home who immerses himself in heavy metal subculture. He uses musical elitism as a means to cover up his own shyness when, among other things, interacting with girls. Minnie McGuinness, Freya Mather, Liv Malone, Leia Lewis, Grace Blood, Jessica Sula, are best friends. By the time Frankie arrives, image-conscious Minnie has already established herself as Roundview's new queen bee. She obscures her own insecurities, such as her body image, and her virginity, and is cruel to Frankie and others. Of her two friends, Liv is the more devoted to Minnie, and is more worldly and sexually voracious. By contrast, Grace, sweet, kind, and positive in her outlook, begins to disassociate herself from Minnie after seeing Frankie's example, and in the first episode establishes a friendship with outsiders Frankie, Alu and Rich. Minnie's boyfriend is Nick Levin, Sean Teal. His popularity makes him something of a status symbol for Minnie, but his feelings for her are shallow and uncomplicated. His brother Matty, Sebastian de Souza, has strained relationships with his family, engages in criminal behavior, and lives rough following an altercation with their father. In Series 6, the group befriend Alex Henley, Sam Jackson, who is gay and in particular forms a close friendship with Liv. Giles Thomas returns as Doug, Roundview's deputy headmaster, as does comedian Chris Addison for a second and third year as headmaster David Blood. Josie Long returns in Series 6, once again as guidance counselor. Gordon Kennedy plays English teacher Alan Prekop, and Alistair McGowan plays Coach Puta, Nick's South African rugby coach.
Plot. Series 1.
Episode 1, Tony, is an ensemble piece that introduces the characters and the format. We meet the effortlessly attractive, popular and intelligent Tony as he arranges for his friends to attend a party held by upper-class girl Abigail Stock, Georgina Moffat. The second episode, Cassie, focuses on Cassie's final visit to an eating disorder clinic under the supervision of Abigail's mother Dr. Stock. In her day-to-day life, she hallucinates messages instructing her to eat which seem to come from Sid, for whom she develops feelings. Giles' episode follows her attempt to win BBC Young Musician of the Year, and her strained relationship with her famous musician father. When a drug dealer Mad Twatter smashes her clarinet as payback for Sid not giving him money for drugs he bought, Giles' father sees to it he will not bother the gang again. In Chris' mother abandons him, leaving PS 1,000 in cash. He blows the money on a party, and is eventually helped into temporary student accommodation by his psychology teacher, Angie, Siwan Morris. Episode 5, Sid, shows Sid's struggle with his parents' breakup while Tony organizes a scheme to set him up with Michelle. A heartbroken and fragile Cassie attempts suicide by drug overdose. Makeshksi and Anwar focuses on the conflict between Anwar's Muslim faith and Makeshksi's homosexuality. On a school trip to Russia, which Cassie does not attend as she is still in hospital, Michelle sees Tony trying to seduce Makeshksi, because he wants to try something new. In Michelle faces up to Tony's manipulative and cheating ways. She begins to date Josh Stock, Abigail's brother, played by Ben Lloyd Hughes, until Tony breaks them up by sending naked photos of Abigail from Josh's phone. In Effie, Josh seeks revenge on Tony and his younger sister Effie, by drugging her and effectively taking her for ransom. In the finale episode, it is Anwar's birthday. Anwar and Makeshksi are reconciled when Anwar's father welcomes Makeshksi to the birthday party, accepting his homosexuality. Chris's relationship with Angie ends violently when her fiancé returns. Tony confesses to Michelle that he loves her and wants to change his manipulative ways, whilst on the phone, only to be hit by a bus, as Effie watches on from Sid's dad Mark's car. The characters begin to sing Wild World by Cat Stevens as Tony lies unconscious and Sid searches for Cassie.
Series 2.
The second series premiered on E4 on February 11, 2008, however the first episode was available in 4 parts to MySpace users prior to airing. Makeshksy and Tony starts the series, showcasing Tony's impairments following his accident and Makeshksy's involvement to his recovery. The two spend time growing closer together and eventually date. The episode also reveals more about Makeshksy's life. We learn of his ambitions to be a dancer, his surname, his difficulties with homophobic bullies, and encounter his parents, played by Bill Bailey and Fiona Allen. The second episode introduces a new character and Makeshksy's stalker, young Carrie Lucy, also known as Sketch. Sketch disrupts the school play organized by drama lecturer Bruce, Shane Ritchie, in order to steal a kiss from Makeshksy. Despite Makeshksy, Sketch begins a sexual relationship with Anwar. Episode 3 focuses on Sid's life, coping with Cassie's departure to Scotland, and he suspects her of cheating. When his Scottish relatives visit, Mark is driven to despair, drinking and smoking himself to death unintentionally. Sid reconnects with brain-damaged Tony when he is able to open up to him about the incident. For Michelle, the group go on a camping trip to a beach. Makeshksy discovers Sketch having sex with Anwar, and Sid sleeps with Michelle, starting a relationship. He comes home to find Cassie waiting for him. In Chris agrees to start a job and Giles learns to start being more opening to new things, and the two end up in a relationship. Although Chris cheats on her with Angie, they move back in together, and Giles discovers she is pregnant. Tony, directed by recurring actor Harry Enfield, sees Tony Stoneham attend a university open day not long after taking an ecstasy tablet that awakens elements of his old personality. In a visual metaphor for Jungian psychology, a mysterious girl who is a projection of Tony's subconscious helps him conquer his mental impairments. His old self again, he confronts Michelle and Sid and tells them their relationship is wrong. With the Stoneham parents unable to run the house, Effie takes over in episode 7. She starts a new private school and befriends weird girl Pandora Moon, Lisa Backwell, and resolves to solve her brother's and his friends' relationship problems. Cassie is hurting and turning to promiscuity, but through Effie's machinations, she and Sid get back together, as do Tony and Michelle. Actor Daniel Kaluuya wrote Giles, which sees her struggle with her pregnancy, while Chris is rushed to hospital with a blood clot in his brain. Meanwhile, Makeshksy introduces his new boyfriend, James, Sean Varay. In Cassie, Giles tells Chris she is having an abortion. Cassie feels without her eating disorder and other problems, she is disempowered. She is traumatized when Chris dies in her arms of a subarachnoid hemorrhage and flees to New York City. In the series finale, the gang get their A-level results, collectively mourn Chris and eventually part ways, with Sid following Cassie to New York, Anwar moving with Makeshksy and James to London, and Sketch left behind. The series ends with Effie in Tony's bed, reveling in the artwork of emotions she has created as she claims her top place in their social world, and also as series lead in the upcoming series.
Series 3.
We are introduced to the new cast on their first day at Roundview College in the series premiere, Everyone. J.J. Jones, James Cook and Freddie McClure are best friends to begin with. Twins Katie and Emily Fitch know Naomi Campbell from school but are distant with her because Katie is homophobic and suspects her of being a lesbian. The gang meet Effie, and sidekick Pandora. Katie wants to become Effie's best friend, and both Cook and Freddie are instantly smitten. Cook passes the tests set by Effie and begins a casual sexual relationship with her. Episode 2 focuses on Cook who invites the whole group over, but their friendships are not very strong yet. Chaos ensues, and Cook angers local gangster Johnny White, Mackenzie Crook. Thomas Tuman is only introduced in the third episode. He is an immigrant from the Congo, and develops a crush on Pandora. He endears himself to the group when he is able to get Johnny White off their backs by besting him in a pepper-eating competition. However, despairing at his decadent life in Bristol, Mrs. Dumont brings Thomas back to the Congo. In Pandora, Pandora's innocent slumber party becomes an MDMA-fueled rave after Katie spikes the brownies. Emily and Naomi kiss. Naomi denies being gay, but urges Emily to admit that she is, who also denies it. Pandora allows Cook to take her virginity, but regrets it when later Thomas returns from the Congo. Freddie's episode shows his difficult relationship with his widower father, Simon Day, and his sister Karen, Clarissa Clayton, who has ambitions to be a celebrity. His father converts Freddie's shed, his personal sanctuary, into a dance studio for Karen. He witnesses Effie's parents break up, discovers that Cook slept with his sister, gets punched in the face by his father, and when he goes to tell Effie how he feels about her discovers she is with Cook. In Naomi, Naomi runs against Cook for student president on the basis that if he wins she will have to sleep with him. When he wins however, he does not force her to take it further than kissing. She and Emily begin a sexual relationship, but Naomi is unwilling to accept the reality of its romantic nature. In JJ, Freddie and Cook's feud over Effie negatively affects JJ. At Emily's encouragement, he manages to confront them both about it, and later loses his virginity when Emily decides to have pity sex with him. Thomas discovers that Pandora has been cheating on him, and while high on JJ's medication, Cook reveals to Freddie that Effie loves Freddie and not him. In Effie's episode, She Has Nothing, her queen bee status has been usurped by Katie, sex with Cook means nothing, and her home life is a wreck. She finally feels something when she has sex with Freddie, but after being tormented by Katie, an intoxicated Effie hits her with a rock. Katie is recovering in Katie and Emily, but her relationship with her sister is falling apart. However, at the college ball, Emily is able to assert herself and Naomi confesses she loves Emily back. Thomas and Pandora also reunite. The finale episode sees Cook and Effie hiding out with Cook's father, Matt King. JJ tracks them down however, and forces Effie to confess it is Freddie that she loves, but Cook is adamant he loves her too. Freddie closes the series, asking, "What do we do now?"
Series 4.
Series 4 begins with the suicide of a girl named Sophia, Amberly Gridley, while she is high on MDMA at a club Thomas works at. A police inspector, Pauline Quirk, questions the entire gang, and Thomas is expelled by the new headmaster, Chris Addison, for his unseemly connection to the incident. Thomas gives in to temptation and sleeps with another girl, resulting in the breakup of him and Pandora. In Emily, Emily's mother, Ronnie Ancona, warns her to take her relationship more slowly and cautiously. Emily discovers Naomi had slept with Sophia and is the one who sold her the MDMA, leaving their relationship fraught. In Cook, Cook is in trouble for an assault and, to be a better influence on his younger brother, accepts a prison sentence for dealing the drugs that led to Sophia's death, covering for Naomi. When Katie loses her job and discovers she has premature menopause, she cannot confide in her mother at first because of the stress of their bankruptcy and homelessness. The Fitches are forced to move into Naomi's house. Freddie worries over Effie's psychological state in his centric episode, as she is developing a psychotic depression that resembles what his mother had before she committed suicide. He is able to save Effie after an attempt on her life. She is hospitalized and he is left desolate. JJ's episode sees him fall in love with a single mother called Lara, Georgia Henshaw, through whom he finds a newfound confidence and begins to doubt whether he really needed to be so highly medicated his whole life. In the penultimate episode, Effie's psychiatric counselor Dr. John Foster, Hugo Spear, uses unorthodox hypnotic methods to cure Effie's depression, making her forget and want to abandon her old friends. After an incident at the spot of Tony's accident where she nearly commits suicide again, her psychosis comes back and Freddie insists Dr. Foster cease treating Effie. Later, Foster lures Freddie to discuss Effie, and brutally murders Freddie with a baseball bat. In the finale episode, Everyone deals with Freddie's absence, thinking that he has left of his own volition. Naomi and Emily finally repair their damaged relationship, scorched by cheating, and Naomi confesses she loved Emily since they first met. Thomas and Pandora are thrown back together by chance when they both get into Harvard College. A mostly recovered Effie holds Freddie's birthday party in his shed, knowing that he loved her and pining for his return. Cook, who is on the run from the police after breaking out of prison, uncovers Dr. Foster's killing and after confronting him, furiously lunges at Foster. The series ends here in freeze frame, leaving both Cook's and John Foster's fates unknown.
Series 5.
The series begins by introducing unconventional newcomer Frankie, to whom secretly insecure popular girl Minnie takes a dislike. Minnie ingratiates Frankie into her group only to disown her. Frankie is on the verge of breakdown, her adoptive father's air revolver in hand, when mysterious stranger Mattie convinces her of her self-worth. Minnie's sweet friend Grace establishes new friendships with Frankie and as school's other outsiders, metalhead Rich and farmhand Lou. In episode 2, Rich, Grace finds herself drawn to Rich. She attempts to help him win over an elusive girl, and eventually he gets past his shyness to realize his attraction to her too. After Minnie's fashion show in Minnie, the two agree to begin dating. Minnie, however, feels pressured to have sex with boyfriend Nick, who does not know she is a virgin. Minnie's cruelty to Grace and her new friends backfires when her fashion show goes completely awry. When she realizes that her best friend Liv has slept with Nick, she forces herself to have sex with him, which is disappointing. She is devastated to see the parallel between her and her promiscuous mother, Claire Grogan, as they encounter one another on their walks of shame. The affair between Nick and Liv continues, though they both suspect Minnie knows when she unifies the two groups of friends under Liv's roof for a party. In Liv, because she cannot handle the stress of her family life or Minnie's scheme, Liv leaves the house. In town, she meets drifter Mattie, and the pair embark on a drug-fueled bender. Back at her house, she discovers that Mattie is in fact Nick's brother, and Liv's affair with Nick comes out in the open. The brothers reconcile, however, and Mattie comes home again. In Nick, Mattie is re-enlisted at Roundview, but his relationship with Liv causes a new love triangle to form, between him, Liv and Frankie. Having lost both Minnie and Liv, and now living in Mattie's shadow, Nick has a nervous breakdown and smashes up his house with a golf club. Through Mattie, however, Nick comes to see his father Leon, Dorian Locke, and his parenting in a more negative light, and the two brothers take a stand. In his episode, Alu's parents take him out of sixth form to work on the farm, and after he causes an explosion they sell all of his belongings. In protest, he throws a massive party, and when he confronts his parents, his father suffers a heart attack. Rather than burden his friend Rich, who has just proudly had sex for the first time with Grace, he goes home and attempts to repair things with his parents. In Grace, Grace introduces Rich to her parents. Rich is shocked to discover that her father is headmaster David Blood, Addison. Blood schemes to have Grace's grades slip on her drama assessment, a staging of Twelfth Night, so that he can justify removing her from Roundview. Grace sees her dilemma, as peacemaker, through Hamlet's Sea of Trouble soliloquy. She uses Twelfth Night to bring the love triangle between Mattie, Liv and Frankie to a head, and ultimately receives an A. After Blood still forces Grace to change schools, Rich is inspired by Romeo and Juliet and proposes to her. In the series finale, the two attempt to marry in secret with the gang as witnesses, though Alu's van breaks down. Minnie begins to recognize her attraction to Frankie, and becomes very protective of her. After an attempt at sex with Mattie, Frankie has a panic attack, charges through a forest, and accidentally falls over a ledge. After being rescued by Minnie, Mattie and Liv, Frankie reveals more to her friends about her insecurities. Though Blood intervenes and Grace and Rich do not marry, they are happily allowed to continue dating, and the gang, solidified as friends, party together at a local fete.
Series 6.
Series 6 starts with the gang on holiday in Morocco. Frankie has lost her virginity to Mattie but is already becoming bored, and is tempted by wealthy drug dealer Luke, played by Joe Cole. Minnie also decides to take Alu's virginity and swears him to secrecy. Matty pursues Luke and Frankie, which quickly escalates into a car chase. His truck overturns, putting Grace in a critical condition, and he runs away to avoid being arrested for the possession of the marijuana and ketamine Luke placed inside his vehicle. Back in Bristol, Frankie struggles to cope with her guilt, and Rich is prevented by her father from seeing Grace in hospital, where she lies in a coma, in Rich. When Mr. Blood takes Grace for treatment in Switzerland, Rich squats in the Bloods' home for some time, convinced that Grace is still alive, but after a party at the house, a mournful David Blood informs him that Grace has subsequently died. In Alex, new kid Alex, who is a little strange, arrives while the gang are at odds, still mourning Grace. Liv in particular develops feelings for him, only for him to disclose to her that he is in fact gay. Nevertheless, they form a close-in bond, particularly as Minnie remains distant from Liv. In her episode, Frankie, overwhelmed with guilt, escapes to bad boy Luke for companionship and excitement. Her actions are negatively viewed, and she quickly becomes alienated. She turns against authoritative figures at school and at home, pushing her to get more involved in her violent and destructive relationship with Luke. During a full-blown fight at a bar, Nick saves Frankie and quietly confesses he loves her. After Luke gets rough with her, Frankie escapes to a park near home where her father meets her. He is there to fend Luke away when he returns in an attempt to win Frankie back. Subsequently, in Minnie continues to distance herself from her friends after Grace's death, while continuing her no-strings-attached relationship with Alu, but is hit further by the revelation that she is pregnant with Alu's baby. To get away from it, she clings to her deadbeat dad, Gregory, who she is convinced has changed. Though he abandons her, with the support of Frankie she is able to accept her pregnancy. In Nick struggles to find money to pay for Russian gangsters to smuggle Maddie back into England, all the while struggling with his feelings for Frankie. After emotionally pouring his heart out to her during an argument in a nightclub toilet, he subsequently blows the deal. But, to his happiness, Frankie finally reciprocates his feelings, and they form a relationship. In Alu is finally forced to grow up when, in his effort to put his failed relationship with Minnie behind him, he has sex with a girl named Poppy Champion, Holly Earl, who he did not initially know to be underage. Poppy reports him to the police when he breaks up with her. Although charges are eventually dropped, he and Minnie are forced further apart than ever before. Liv focuses on Liv's isolation. Since meeting Alex, she has been dealing with Grace's death by going out, partying, drinking, and staying at Alex's house instead of her own home. Alex leaves Bristol one weekend, and Liv finds that, aside from her sister Maud, she has truly drifted from her friends, and Minnie in particular. Moreover, she begins to have intense pains and feels a large lump on her side, which she worries might be ovarian cancer. Ultimately, however, the lump turns out to be a grief-induced hallucination. Responding to this, Liv takes a step towards dealing with Grace's death by placing flowers next to her tombstone alongside Rich, Doug, and Maud. While Minnie's mum tries to convince her to give her child for adoption once it is born, and Frankie is conflicted after Matty returns to Bristol, in Frankie and Minnie, both girls decide to leave everything behind and abscond. Soon, however, Minnie wishes to return home, despite Frankie's insistence. Alu learns of Minnie's pregnancy and to her surprise, in the end, vows to take care of her no matter what. In the finale, Frankie attempts to track down her mother, but instead finds her biological sister who declares their mother has died. At Alex's house party to celebrate leaving Bristol behind, she tells both Matty and Nick she loves them but cannot be with them. In the conclusion, Minnie goes into labor, while Frankie's sister takes her to see her mother, who is not dead after all. Nick and Matty bond once again, and the latter turns himself into the police. In the final scene, playing in parallel, Alex leaves Bristol for Thailand. Alu and Liv are beside Minnie as she gives birth. Frankie lays eyes on her mother. And Rich, outside the room where Minnie is giving birth, looks at the camera and says bye.
Series 7.
The seventh series, titled Skins Redo, aired on July 1, 2013. It saw the return of former Skins stars Hannah Murray as Cassie, Jack O'Connell as Cook and Casco Delario as Effie in 3 individual stories. Lily Lovelace as Naomi and Catherine Prescott as Emily also starred in guest roles. The 3 stories have their own titles: Skins Fire, Effie, Skins Pure, Cassie, and Skins Rise, Cook. The 6-part series began filming on the 22nd October 2012 and concluded at the end of January 2013. Skins Fire depicts Effie as a 21-year-old hedge fund receptionist. She lives with Naomi, who is drifting through life with vague ambitions of being a stand-up comedian. Effie is much more serious and driven than in the past, and impresses her bosses enough to win a shot at being a stock trader. In her attempts to succeed in her career, she becomes embroiled in an insider trading scandal, as well as romantically involved with her boss, Kayvan Novak. In order to spare her lovelorn friend Dom, Craig Roberts, from jail time for his part in the crime, she makes a full confession to the Financial Services Authority of hers and Jake's activities. Meanwhile, Naomi reveals she is struggling with cancer, and pleads with Effie to not tell Emily, who is in New York on an internship. Dom and Effie support Naomi until it is clear her condition is fatal. Emily returns to London, hurt and betrayed, and comforts Naomi while Effie is prosecuted. Skins Pure catches up with Cassie at 23, living a solitary existence in London and waitressing after breaking up with an ex-boyfriend in America. The new Cassie no longer does drugs, and has recovered from her eating disorder. After discovering someone has been secretly taking and uploading artful photos of her to the internet, she tracks down her stalker, who is revealed to be the cook at her cafe, Jacob, Ollie Alexander. After realizing Jacob's attention gives her confidence, she allows him to continue photographing her on her terms, in an explicitly non-sexual friendship. While trying to support her depressed father and little brother after the death of her mother, her friendship with Jacob slowly comes apart as his jealousy grows irrational, particularly when Cassie models for a professional shoot. Ultimately, Cassie chooses to leave behind her friendship with Jacob and another man who had been pursuing her romantically, Daniel Benzeno, to focus on raising her little brother while her father recuperates in Italy. Skins Rise follows Cook, now somewhere in his early 20s, who is on the run and living alone in Manchester. The introduction features a voiceover of Cook, explaining his thoughts and alluding towards a murder he may have committed, but never outright stating it, although it is very heavily implied that Cook did in fact kill John Foster, and has been on the run ever since. He is now a drug dealer and has a semi-serious relationship with a woman named Emma, but becomes mesmerized by Charlie, the girlfriend of local drug lord Louis, after he is asked to watch over her for a few days as she runs errands. Cook witnessed Charlie's indiscretion with a man named Jason after a night at a club, and is beaten to keep his mouth shut. Louis, however, is aware of the incident and has his henchman Rob murder Jason brutally in front of both Cook and Charlie, making it clear that he does not deal with disloyalty. After that, Cook decides that it is not safe for him to stay in Manchester and asks Emma to leave with him. While escaping from the city, Charlie calls Cook and begs him to take her with them. The 3 end up at Emma's family's old country home, in a remote part of the country. Not long after, though, Louis arrives, explaining that he tracked the car they used. Charlie refuses to go with him, and the 3 decide to leave the house. As they are walking, they find Emma's parents' car abandoned. Later, Louis catches and murders Emma. At the end of the episode, he decides he is done running, and faces Louis. Beating him, he repeats his famous line, "I'm Cook. You thought you could kill me? I'm fucking Cook." He helps Charlie get away after he has alerted the police, and the series ends with Cook contemplating life and death, and how he feels about each.
American Remake.
Although Skins aired in the United States on BBC America, only Series 1 to 3 aired, and the rights cleared only for those series for purchase of DVDs or online viewing in the US, albeit in an edited form, strong language bleeped out and some more graphic scenes of violence and sex cut out. MTV announced that they would be adapting the show into an American version set in Baltimore, Maryland. With Bryan Elsley as executive producer, the series began filming in February 2010 in Toronto, Canada. The first episode of the US series is almost a shot-for-shot copy of the first episode of the UK series, but it deviates from the original plot in following episodes such that there are significant differences between the US and UK versions. Characters are also similar, and some names have been changed. Sid has been renamed Stanley, Cassie renamed Katie and Giles renamed Daisy. In addition, Tony's younger sister Effie, who becomes a main character in Generation 2 of UK Skins, was renamed Ara. However, the biggest change comes in the form of T, a lesbian cheerleader who replaces the UK gay character Mixie, who was a professional dancer. The show's cancellation was announced by MTV on June 10, 2011. The Parents Television Council, an advocacy group, criticized the show, calling it one of the worst shows a child could watch. Reasons cited for its cancellation included loss of advertising sponsors and a shrinking audience, with fewer people tuning in for each subsequent episode. Pre-adult teens, minors under U.S. law, who are MTV's core demographic audience, were at the center of the argument for those who disapproved of the program, even with MTV's self-imposed restrictive broadcaster-like standards and practices.
Production. Writing.
The show's writing team has an average age of 21, and includes several teenage consultants. Elsley said, "It's all about the writing. We're about letting our audience feel they are not alone. We're always having people miss meetings because they've got A-levels or even GCSEs." In January 2011, Brittain announced a writing competition open to the public to help with the developing and writing of Series 6. According to Brittain, the winner will receive a 4-month placement in the Skins Writers' Room, where you'd be invited to attend at least 10 of our top-secret meetings, working with the other Skins writers, as well as monetary compensation. The winners of the 2011 competition were Sophie Boyce, 18, and Joe Hampson, 21. The winner of the 2008 competition, Dan Lovett, went on to become an official member of the Skins writing team.
Filming.
The show is filmed almost entirely in Bristol. Scenes at Roundview College were shot at Henbury School for Series 4, having formerly been set at the John Cabot Academy and SGSY's campus, and multiple scenes are located around College Green. Special locations for individual episodes have included the Gower Peninsula, Sharpness Docks, the University of Exeter and New York City. The series was shot entirely in high definition, using Sony HDW750p cameras for the first 2 series, and Sony HDW-F900 thereafter, both supplied by Panavision. It was edited at BBC Studios and post-production in Bristol, using Autodesk Lustre and Autodesk Smoke. The Trip to Russia episode was actually shot in Lithuania, near the capital Vilnius. This episode was shot in cooperation with Lithuanian film studios and professional Lithuanian actors. It was announced in April 2008 that all of the original cast, except Kausko Delario and Lisa Backwell, would be replaced for Series 3. Creator Bryan Elsley said, "There are risks associated with dumping a cast, but we just did it. There was some disquiet at the channel, but then they told us just to go with it." Speaking at Broadcast's television drama conference, he also confirmed the show would stick to its pattern of introducing college-age characters, moving them on in the next series, then letting them go. "The first year is about getting to know the kids, and the second gives us the advantage of being able to explore their psyches a little more," said Elsley. Brittain said that the new cast would be quite different from the original characters, although people may still spot some similarities. Open auditions for the second generation of cast members were held in Bristol, which attracted 1,516 to 18-year-olds, followed by a further 2 days of auditions in London.
Online content.
A variety of videos have been released on the Skins website, including character profiles, and unseen Skins mini-episodes that interweave with every aired episode. In addition to character profiles on the official E4 website, Accounts for the lead Skins characters are maintained on popular social networking website MySpace. Each series is launched on MySpace, with previews of the first episodes a few days before they are aired on television. There is also an official Skins internet bot for Windows Live Messenger, which allows users to receive automated messages throughout the airing of each episode with music credits, trivia, and behind-the-scenes gossip.
Reception. Critical reception.
The first generation, Season 1 and 2, received mostly positive reviews, although some critics complained that the series depicts teenagers unrealistically and stereotypically. Others criticized the excessive promotion of the show, specifically in the UK, and having relatively mediocre writing in comparison to other similarly themed shows. Actor Nicholas Hoult defended the extreme storylines, saying they would not reflect everyone's teenage life, adding it is maybe heightened for entertainment but all of it is believable. Brooker of BB4's Charlie Brooker's Screenwipe gave the second series a positive review in his Guardian column Screen Burn, and specifically stated that the series had wrong-footed me, as his initial expectation of Skins was that it was a shallow show. However, his opinion changed only after he had finished watching the second series. The second generation, Seasons 3 and 4, however, was met with mixed reception, with criticism especially placed on the entire cast change and how the loss of the first generation was heavily felt. The Independent gave the third series a mixed review, stating that as before, Skins is slickly made, but I remember the earlier series being more nuanced. What was striking about last week's opening episode was the absolute inadequacy of every single adult character, their complete subordination to comic business. Though the central characters were disappointingly two-dimensional, the adults were barely even points on a map. Nobody over the age of 17 was granted anything approaching an inner life, a point of view, sympathy. Donofgeek.com gave the third series a negative review, stating Series 3 could be politely described as patchy, which is a nicer way of saying barely coherent sprawling mess. Rebooting with an almost entirely new cast was a bold move, however, they turned out to be a poor replacement for the originals, with only Jack O'Connell as Cook being convincing. Its focus was so intent on setting up the dullest love polygon ever between three musketeers J.J., Cook and Freddie, with the totally deep Effie at the center. It didn't help that Freddie and Effie had about as much charisma and chemistry between them as the average paving slab. It had no time for silly things like rounding out the rest of the cast beyond cardboard cutout characterization or believable storylines, such as Emily coming out as a lesbian, then sleeping with J.J. because, well, there was 5 minutes left at the end of the episode, I guess. It was also indecisive in tone, shifting from serious drama to high comedy so quickly it gave viewers whiplash, the finale culminating in three friends-turned-rivals fighting for a girl's love by running through a small town with old ladies on their backs. It had become everything people who hated it said it was. At the end, it even seemed to recognize how lost it had become when Cook asked, "So what do we do now?" The fourth season received mixed to negative reviews from critics and fans alike. Criticism was especially placed on the darker tone of the series, which critics and fans alike deemed too dark in comparison to the previous three series. Others criticized the series' storylines, most explicitly the John Foster Effie Freddie storyline, for being ultimately mishandled, as they believed the show was unable to decide which storyline would be the main one. Thus, many storylines were deemed erratic and rushed with no big payoff at the conclusion of the series. Although reception of this generation was mixed, the Naomi storyline received extremely positive reception in both the UK and North America, along with proving popular with lesbian viewers. A poll conducted by American gay women's media website AfterEllen.com ranked Naomi and Emily as the top two fictional lesbian and bisexual characters. Canna Scodelario received widespread universal acclaim for her performance as Effie Stoneham. Season 5 was met with positive reviews. Critics felt the fifth series was a good turn for Skins, focusing on more realistic teen issues. The Guardian gave the series a positive review, stating that the new bunch of mates seemed to suggest a return to the hedonistic feel of the original series. This time, however, It isn't a cool kid like Tony who is out to charm our socks off. As we meet the new gang at Roundview, it looks like they're focusing on the outcast's point of view from the off. Hooray! With an intriguing bunch of outcast kids and a refreshed sense of hedonism, Skins looks like it could be back on form. Unlike the previous season, Season 6 received mostly mixed to negative reviews. Metro.co.uk gave the series a mixed review, stating in its day, Skins has taken us high, raising the bar for youth-oriented drama with stories and characters that stretched wider than an age-defined target market. It feels mean writing these words about a show that, in its way, blazed a trail for the likes of Misfits and the Fades. But on this evidence the appeal of Skins is failing fast. Scotsman.com gave the series a negative review, stating that the only thing that truly changes about the E4 show is its main cast. An entire two-season overhaul means we should be nearing the end of Skins 3.0, but it barely matters as the writers, all 148 of them, are locked into a loop of repeating structures, echoing relationship dilemmas and eerily similar character arcs with ever-decreasing rewards. The final season received mixed reviews. If Story Fire received mixed reviews. Part 1 was generally positive. The Telegraph UK gave Fire, Part 1 4/5 stars, stating, the fact that all the plot progression was extremely predictable, and that only the characters of Effie and her flatmate Naomi were more than, skin deep, would surely have sunk most drama. But happily it did not. Skins was a triumph of slick over substance. The floors echoed pleasingly to the sound of expensive footwear. The characters were deservedly pasty and horrible. On the other hand, reception for Skins Fire, Part 2 was much more mixed in the UK, with much of the criticism stemming from the dark endings for both Effie's and the Naomi storylines. Digital Spy UK gave Skins Fire Part 2 3/5 stars, stating last week, I questioned the wisdom of imposing a tragic twist on the Naomi romance and, having now seen how the plot played out, I stand by my original criticism. Yes, these dramatic scenes milk the fantastic cast for all they're worth, but that's not the point. Sometimes, a happy ending isn't cheap or trite, sometimes, it's earned. To steal that away from Emily and Naomi here just feels mean-spirited. Effie's final fate also feels cruel. She's always projected confidence but, beneath the bravado, has remained desperate for reassurance and validation from the men in her life, from Tony onwards. All the grief and tragedy soon becomes overwhelming. The second part of Skins Fire is very good, the acting, script and direction are all top-notch, but, at times, the tone is pitch black. When the laughs come, they're still pin-sharp but they're few and far between. It's telling that I always preferred those first series of Skins, the fun, the hedonism, to their more adult follow-ups. This is the show at its most bleak and, for my taste at least, it leans too far to the dark side. Cassie's Story Pure received positive reviews. Part 1 was fairly positive. Digital Spy UK gave the episode 3/5 stars, stating anyone still reeling from the pitch-black Skins Fire and hoping to find a little light relief in Skins Pure can guess again. As with its predecessor, there's little of the debauchery here that once made E4's teen drama so notorious. In its place is the grim notion that once your youthful exuberance has dried up, there's little waiting for you in the real world but disappointment. It's perhaps not surprising that Skins Pure shares the same strengths and weaknesses as Fire, with uniformly solid acting, writing and direction. It's definitely worth buckling down and persevering with. But lacking as it does a sense of fun, some may find it too heavy-going to handle. So far, this series of Skins has been easy to admire, to really enjoy. On that basis, I'm hoping Cassie gets a happy ending and a good route next week. Us Skins fans could use it. Part 2 was also positive. DenvGeek gave the episode a generally positive review, stating out of all the characters over 3 generations of Skins, Cassie holds a special place in most fans' hearts. That makes the fact that Skins Pure, as a complete 2-hour adventure, leaves you feeling so good amazing in a number of ways. It's faithful to the character without being afraid to adapt her to an adult world. For one, and the happy ending here feels earned, rather than tacked on for the fans. Always reliant on others for a sense of belonging, now Cassie has stepped in and created her own family, taking in her little brother while her dad gets away for a while. It's not the way I expected things to go, but at last everything's good is wonderful. Cook's Story Rise received critical acclaim. Digital Spy UK gave the episode 4/5 stars, stating Skins Rise thrills in a way that its predecessors didn't. It's plenty dark in places, but also engaging and outlandish in all the ways that classic Skins was. It may have its flaws, but Part 1 of Rise is certainly the standout installment from these final Skins episodes, with Jack O'Connell anchoring Jamie Brittain's script with a typically magnetic central performance.
Awards.
The show won the Best Drama Prize at the 2008 Rose d'Or ceremony, and also won the Best Production Design, Drama, for Amelia Shankland's work on Cassie, at the Royal Television Society Awards 2007, in addition to being nominated for Best Photography, Drama. Tal Rosner's graphics for Skins won a BAFTA for Best Title Sequence at the British Academy Television Craft Awards in May 2008. In March 2008, the show was nominated for Best Drama Series in the British Academy Television Awards 2008. The show's innovative marketing was awarded Best Advertising Campaign at the Media Guardian Awards for Innovation in 2008. The viral marketing preluding the second series won the Entertainment category at the Interactive Marketing and Advertising Awards 2008. Skins won the Phillips Audience Award at the BAFTA's 2009. Skins won the Switch's Turn On at the BBC Switch Live Awards 2009. The series director of photography, Nick Dance, has been nominated for a BAFTA and an RTS award for photography and lighting for his work on the series. In 2010, Skins was nominated for a GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Drama Series during the 21st GLAAD Media Awards. In 2011, the series won Best TV Show at the NME Awards 2011.
Television ratings.
The pilot episode of Skins averaged 1.5 million viewers. The ratings for the second series, which launched, peaked at 884,000 viewers, which gave it 5.9% audience share and taking 60% of the 16 to 24 demographic. However, this was still more than 500,000 viewers down on its Series 1 premiere. The series finale attracted an audience of 740,000 on E4, equating to a 4.65% share of the audience. The start of the third series drew in 877,000 viewers, proving popular with its key audience demographic of younger people. 56.2% of viewers were aged between 16 and 34. Series 4 premiered with 1.5 million viewers across E4 and E4+1, the highest-rated episode since Series 1.
Cultural influence.
The program has given rise to the term Skins Party, referring to a debauched night of heavy drinking and recreational drug use. During the 2007 Easter holidays, a girl in County Durham threw a house party. It was advertised on her MySpace profile as Skins' Unofficial Party, referring to the party in the first series trailer, with the subtitle "Let's Trash the Average Family-Sized House Disco Party." 200 people turned up, breaking into the house and causing over $20,000 of seemingly deliberate damage. She alleges that her account was hacked and someone else placed the ad. Similar incidents have taken place in the Republic of Ireland, with major household damage and theft of personal property being reported in Fear House and Fox Rock. Although these attacks have not been conclusively linked to the show, news outlets have reported that they are called Skins parties. Club nights marketed as Skins secret parties have also taken shape in Leicester and Brighton. Following this, a series of parties were run by Company Pictures in spring 2008.
Other media.
In May 2009, E4 confirmed that Film 4 and Company Pictures were in preliminary talks about a movie spin-off. In March 2010, Jack Thorne revealed to The Guardian that the Skins motion picture was in pre-production. On May 31, 2011, after many whisperings about whether the movie would go ahead or not, Casco Delario announced on Twitter, "I genuinely don't know anything about that, have no idea if it's even happening. Scodelario continued by saying I would still love to do the Skins movie, and that she would enjoy working with the cast again. In September 2009, Company Pictures announced that the Skins brand has been licensed to Crystal Entertainment. The plan is to help creator Bryan Elsley expand the brand into areas such as film, fashion and music. They described Skins as the most authentic teen brand on TV. In January 2010, Hodder and Stoughton published Skins, the novel, ISBN 1-4449-0004-8, a short novel by Ali Cronian that describes events taking place between Series 3 and 4, and in March 2011, they published Skins, v. 2, Summer Holiday, ISBN 978-1444903,096, a short novel by Jess Brittain which centers around the Series 5 cast.